No, this one. No, that's the failsafe. Who built this thing? Oh, that's it. Sonic Boom!
Doing the Iceberg series has made me realize how much people love to know all there is to know about their favorite franchises, and the Icebergs detail them perfectly, from the well-known information to the super obscure. In an effort to get all the Street Fighter information into one video, I present to you the Street Fighter Iceberg Complete. This video combines the two previous Iceberg videos together into one long video with corrections from previous videos and new information exclusive to this one. Whether this is your first time going down the iceberg or if you want to go down it again, I hope you enjoy the Street Fighter Iceberg Completed. Before I launch into the iceberg, it'd be really helpful if you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell as well for notifications on future videos. Those two simple clicks really help this channel out a lot, so thank you if you've been subscribing and watching and all that good stuff. And if you want to know more about me personally, hit me up on the social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Zmangs. And with all that out of the way, let's begin. How much do you know? One thing I will be referring to a lot in this video is the Shadowloo CRI website. The Shadowloo is an evil organization in the Street Fighter universe. An official website by Capcom called the Shadowloo Combat Research Institute has a lot of information about the series and the lore. Since it is an official website, anything that has an article on the CRI website is probably canon. Another thing I'm going to refer to here in the video is called the Satsui no Hadou. If you don't know what that Satsui no Hadou, sometimes called the Dark Hadou, is the dark force in the Street Fighter universe. It comes out when a fighter is so consumed by hate and rage, they will do anything to win. Basically, forfeit your compassion and humanity for raw power. Akuma tapped into the Satsui no Hadou to become the fighter that he is, at the expense of his humanity. Oni is what would happen if the Satsui no Hadou totally consumes him. When Ryu taps into it, he turns into Evil Ryu. The antithesis to the Satsui no Hadou is the power of nothingness, which is what Ryu and Gouken use for their powers. Several characters can tap into the Satsui no Hadou, and it is a big part of the Street Fighter lore. Ryu Hoshi. Hoshi is the last name given to Ryu from the live-action movie and the cartoon. Ryu Hoshi has been thrown out here and there are some fans who insist that it's his real name, but as far as Capcom has been concerned, Ryu is just that, Ryu. Sheng Long. Sheng Long is a character originating from Ryu's win quote in Street Fighter II. You must defeat Sheng Long to stand a chance. This was supposed to be, you must defeat my Shoryuken, but it got lost in translation. Sheng Long ended up being a bit of an urban legend, most famously from an April Fool's prank from EGM. While Sheng Long hasn't appeared in the Street Fighter series proper, he does have official artwork from Capcom and was the inspiration for Akuma and Gouken. Charlie Nash. Originating from the Alpha games, Charlie was called Nash in Japan and Charlie everywhere else. The reason why they call him Charlie outside Japan is that Nash isn't really a natural first name for an American. A lot of people assume that his full name was Charlie Nash, but Capcom never clarified it. Capcom put this to bed once and for all with Street Fighter 4, calling Charlie Charlie Nash, and in Street Fighter 5, he's just called Nash everywhere. Street Fighter 2 Rainbow Edition. Rainbow Edition is a hack of Street Fighter 2 that breaks the game in a number of ways, from overpowered characters to being able to switch characters mid-match. As a hack, it's guaranteed to never have a home port. That said, it does have a small cult following, and tournaments do happen from time to time. Kara Cancel. Kara Cancel is a technique used in various Street Fighter titles. Originally a glitch in Street Fighter 2, some characters could cancel a normal that moves them forward or backward into a special move or a grab. It eventually became a deliberate part of the Street Fighter game design, such as Sagat being able to Kara cancel his step kick into an uppercut. Since then, it has become a staple of fighting game design in general. Ingrid. Ingrid is an original character that was supposed to debut in the cancelled Capcom All-Stars. She made her official debut in the Capcom Fighting Evolution title and the PSP version of Street Fighter Alpha 3. Despite not having many appearances in the Street Fighter series, she is a part of the canon and has influence in the Street Fighter universe. It is speculated that her mixed reception in America is the reason why she hasn't appeared as a playable fighter yet. Name swaps. Capcom has had a bit of an issue with the name changes in different regions. Besides the aforementioned Charlie Nash, The three bosses are probably the most infamous. Bison is Vega in Japan, Balrog is Bison, and Vega is Balrog. The reason for the changes was due to the possibility of being sued by Mike Tyson, who Balrog has a lot of resemblance to. For international fans, some referred to Balrog as Boxer, Vega as Claw, and Bison as Dictator to make things easier. Additionally, Akuma is referred to as Goki in Japan. Omega Mode. Omega Mode is a joke mode added to Ultra Street Fighter IV that intentionally breaks the game. Think of it like an official version of Rainbow Edition. It deliberately overtunes every character to the point of hilarity. Though when it first dropped, Gen found out to have a one-button infinite and no one played it. Violent Ken. Violent Ken originally made his debut in the animated movie, and SNK added him as an extra version of Ken to the SNK-developed SVC Chaos. He eventually made his official Capcom debut with the Switch-exclusive Ultra Street Fighter II: The New Challengers, where he could be played with, alongside Evil Ryu. CPS1 Chains. Street Fighter II was originally developed on Capcom's CPS1 board. Versions on this arcade board allowed for characters to combo several light kicks into a punch button for major damage. This was a glitch and removed from the CPS2 versions of Street Fighter II. Street Fighter I Pneumatic Buttons. The original version of Street Fighter I had a unique button setup, where you get different attack strengths based on how hard you press the buttons. While an interesting idea, the pneumatic buttons were hard to maintain. For the sake of price and convenience, Capcom would adapt the traditional 6-button layout later. Ryu and Ken's appearance in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate pays tribute to the pneumatic buttons by having different attack strengths come out from how hard you press the attack buttons. Red Parry. A red parry is an advanced technique used in Street Fighter III, the Third Strike. It's when you parry out of block stun. The timing is much stricter than a normal parry, but is useful in high-level play. Mega Man X Street Fighter references. One of Capcom's most beloved properties is the Mega Man X series, and given Capcom's love of internal shoutouts, there's a few to the Street Fighter franchise in X. In X1, X can perform the Hadouken with a special code, and in X2, X can perform a Shoryuken after fighting a capsule or using a code. In X4, the character Magma Dragoon has a lot in common with Akuma, and uses Shoryukens and Hadoukens in battle. Also, in a bit of trivia, Chun-Li appears as a reporter in Mega Man 9, which is a callback to her job as a reporter in Street Fighter the movie. See also Mega Man Cross Street Fighter. Guest appearances. Street Fighter, being one of the most popular and marketable franchises of all time, means that Capcom is more than willing to have its characters featured in other titles. This is only going to go over guest appearances in non-Capcom games. Some of the most famous include Akuma in Tekken 7, Ryu and Ken in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and Ryu and Chun-Li in Fortnite. Some lesser-known examples include Taisen Net Gimmick, a Japan-only Mahjong title from Saikyo, Ryu and Chun-Li in Power Rangers Battle for the Grid, as well as the mobile Power Rangers title, several characters appearing in Monolith's Cross series, same with several characters appearing in Grand Blue Fantasy. Grand Blue Fantasy Versus was heavily inspired by Street Fighter II, so things have come full circle. Finally, Ryu, Chun-Li, and Sakura appear as an event in the Fist of the North Stars game, Fist of the North Stars Legends on mobile, which also had guest appearances from Virtual Fighter characters. You can have Street Fighter and Virtual Fighter meet in a Fist of the North Star game on mobile. What is reality anymore? Jojo's influence. Jojo's Bizarre Adventure is one of the most popular and influential manga of all time. Street Fighter definitely pays tribute to Jojo's, the most obvious being Rose being inspired by Lisa, Judy being inspired by Jolene, Necalli being a tribute to the Pillarmen, and the very American Guile being inspired by the Nazi cyborg Stroheim of all characters, but he does have elements of Polnareff in him too. Some other influences include Charlie's hair being inspired by Kakyoin's, and Seth's rapid punch in 5 being straight ripped from Dio's appearance in JoJo's Heritage for the Future. There's a lot of anime and non-gaming influence in Street Fighter, but people wanted me to talk about JoJo specifically. Capcom would later make several JoJo's games, only the fighter Heritage for the Future was released internationally. Asura's Wrath. One of Capcom's more interesting and insane titles is Asura's Wrath. While it was critically polarizing and commercially underwhelming, it remains a cult classic for its epic scope and action. One of the DLC chapters has Asura fight Ryu in a Street Fighter IV based fight, until you remember it's Asura's Wrath and the fight unchains itself and goes insane, showing how powerful Asura, Evil Ryu, and Oni can be. It's a spectacle for sure, and it just makes you want Asura to be playable in a Capcom crossover. Same with Jean from God Hand, he would be sick to play as well. Fighting Street. Fighting Street is the Turbo CD port of Street Fighter 1. Many are unaware that one was ported to the system due to the name change, but it is there if you are a Turbo CD collector. Tekken Cross Street Fighter. Back in 2010, Namco and Capcom announced that their popular fighting game franchises would be crossing over in 2 titles. Capcom developed Street Fighter Cross Tekken and released that in early 2012, but at the time of writing this video, nothing has come to the surface for the Namco-developed Tekken Cross Street Fighter other than a bit of art. Tekken director Katsuhiro Harada implies that the project isn't dead, it's just low priority due to Tekken 7's runaway success, and given the polarizing reception to Street Fighter Cross Tekken, though Akuma in Tekken 7 does give a glimpse of what might be in the future. Capcom Fighting All-Stars and Capcom vs SNK 3. In the early 2000s, Capcom announced a 3D fighter called Capcom Fighting All-Stars. It got decently far into development, even getting playtested. However, due to the falling relevance of arcades in the early 2000s and poor reception from playtesters, Capcom canceled the project. What isn't as well known is that prior to All-Stars, Capcom vs SNK 3 was planned. It would have been a 3D title like Street Fighter EX, but due to SNK's financial problems, that title was scrapped, and whatever was made into that title was put into All-Stars, which, just mentioned, got cancelled too. It was hinted that K-Dash or maybe Kyo were planned to guest star in All-Stars, but obviously that never happened. As a compromise, we got Capcom Fighting Evolution. Yay? Rival Schools. For those of you who don't know, Street Fighter is a shared universe. That means other Capcom titles are canon to the Street Fighter universe, such as Final Fight. One game that was debated about its relationship to the Street Fighter universe was Rival Schools. Sakura was a guest character in the first title, and Kyosuke was a guest character in Capcom vs SNK 2. Despite him appearing in that title, he missed out on the handheld versions of Street Fighter Alpha 3, whereas his CPS2 co-stars Yun, Maki, and Eagle were playable in the handheld versions of that title. So for a while, people were debating if Rival Schools and Street Fighter were in the same universe, but it seems like Capcom has put this to bed, as several Rival Schools characters make cameos in the Kanzuki Beach stage in Street Fighter V, and Akira will be playable in Street Fighter V. The details have yet to be seen, but it's safe to assume Rival Schools and Street Fighter do take place in the same universe. Shower and bath scenes. Show of hands, whose first time seeing nipples was the shower scene in Street Fighter 2, the animated movie? Yeah, that's what I thought. Anyway, there's a list of scenes that involve bathing in Street Fighter, let's do this. Chun-Li in the animated movie, Ryu and Ken skinny dipping in 2V, Chun-Li in a bathrobe in the Western show, but we don't see her in the bath, Rose bathing in Alpha 2, Rose bathing in the Capcom Gals manga, Rose bathing in 5, Sakura and Kei in the bathhouse in Marvel vs. Capcom 1, Sakura and Fuka in Alpha Generations, various characters in the swimsuit specials, and Chun-Li in The Legend of Chun-Li, but if I ever have to talk about that movie ever again, I will sumo headbutt a brick wall. Street Fighter 2010. Street Fighter 2010 is a spin-off of the Street Fighter series released for the NES. The original Famicom version makes no reference to the Street Fighter universe, however, the localized version did. Even though it isn't canon to Street Fighter, and it's so far removed anyway it wouldn't make sense to fit in with Street Fighter, the lead, Kevin Straker, or Ken in the NES version, does have an official bio on the Shadowloo page. Ken Master. When Street Fighter 2 was blowing up in popularity, Hasbro got the rights to make merch of the series in the style of their G.I. Joe toy line. Perhaps to differentiate from Ken from Barbie, Hasbro named Ken to Ken Master, as seen in this commercial. Capcom must have liked the name, so they added S to Master, and since then, Ken has been called Ken Masters. Captain Commando. Captain Commando was a beat-em-up from Capcom that was set in the future of Metro City, aka the city in where Final Fight takes place in. Additionally, the game mentions that 2 characters were trained in the same RS guy, Bushin Ryu. Due to this, it is assumed that Captain Commando is canon to the Street Fighter universe. Go Hibiki. Go Hibiki is Dan's father, who is quite the fighter, unlike Dan. Go is responsible for taking out one of Sagat's eyes. In response, Sagat killed Go in battle. While important to Dan's character, Go hasn't appeared much in the franchise. His most famous artwork is this one seen here, where Saga is carrying the body of a dead Go. Go-Tetsu. Go-Tetsu is Gokin and Okuma's master. In battle, Okuma killed Go-Tetsu after succumbing to the Satsui no Hadou. The result of this was Gokin teaching Ryu and Ken a non-lethal style of martial arts. While not being playable, he has made appearances in other Street Fighter media, such as Alpha Generations and Assassin's Fist. He has official artwork from Capcom. Captain Sawada. Sawada is a character from Street Fighter the movie, portrayed by Kenya Sawada. Kenya was Capcom's original choice to play Ryu in the movie, but due to Kenya's poor English, as well as creative differences from the director of the movie, he was cast into an original character, Captain Sawada. Kenya wasn't happy about this, and only took the role due to obligations from Capcom. It's rumored that Kenya might have been moved to a Fei Long role, and he did have a cameo as Fei Long in the background in the movie The Game. Regardless, that fell through too. Sawada has only appeared in the movie, the game of the movie, and the animated show. He has a page on the Shadaloo CRI. Sarah. Sarah was the original name for Cammy in Super Street Fighter 2. Supposedly, this was changed at the last minute, as around the release of Super Street Fighter 2, The New Challengers, Virtua Fighter made its debut. One of Virtua Fighter's more popular characters is Sarah Bryant, a blonde female fighter. Perhaps to avoid confusion between two different Sarahs, Capcom renamed Sarah to Cammy, and the rest is history. Kaze no Ken. Kaze no Ken is a technique utilized by Ryu. It first appeared in the comic spin-off Street Fighter 3, Ryu Final. Ryu channels his ki and releases it into a single blow. It has made small cameos in the franchise, and was supposed to be Ryu's finisher in the unreleased Capcom Fighting All-Stars. Kaze no Ken is now Ryu's V-Trigger 2 in Street Fighter V. Shadow and Shadow Lady. Shadow and Shadow Lady are alternative versions of Charlie and Chun-Li, characterized by their dark color palettes. They are what-if characters, as in what would happen if Charlie and Chun-Li were captured by the Shadaloo and brainwashed to work for them. Shadow Lady is an unlockable bonus character in Marvel vs. Capcom 1, and is a boss in the extra battle in Street Fighter V. Billy and Sid. Billy and Sid were generic enemies added to the English versions of Final Fight for the Super Nintendo and Game Boy Advance, replacing Roxy and Poison due to the gender controversy at the time. Their only appearance to date is Final Fight 1 for the Super Nintendo and the Game Boy Advance. They have been mentioned in the CRI website, but don't have their own pages, so who knows where Billy and Sid are at now. Scott and Max. Scott and Max are two fighters from Street Fighter 2's iconic opening. Many thought that they were Joe and Mike from Street Fighter 1, but Capcom cleared it up. The two in the intro are original characters. Even though they haven't been playable in any capacity, they do make cameos in Street Fighter V. Dark Sakura. Sakura is the only female in the Street Fighter franchise so far that can tap into the Satsui no Hadou. Unlike Akuma or Evil Ryu, Dark Sakura still maintains a large amount of her humanity, and she can perform her own Shun Gokusatsu. While Dark Sakura hasn't appeared in Street Fighter proper yet, she can be played as in Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter and Marvel vs. Capcom 2 as an Install Super. She also appeared in one of the Udon comics. Golden Stance. Golden Stance is a glitch done in early versions of Street Fighter 2 that locks Guile's character in place. It stops the game from ending the round, messes up AI patterns, and can start other glitches, such as Guile's infamous handcuff glitch. Red Hadouken glitch. In versions of Street Fighter 2, occasionally Ryu or Ken's Hadouken would turn red. This was probably a glitch or maybe an Easter egg, but many players speculated what caused the Hadouken to turn red. Come Super Street Fighter 2, Capcom gave Ryu a new fireball called the Shakunetsu Hadouken, and has become a staple of Ryu's kit, and other Shoto clones use it too. VHS promo. Back in the 90s, getting promotional VHS tapes wasn't all that uncommon. There were several for Street Fighter 2, but the one I want to focus on is the Turbo promo tape that had some legit competitive advice in it and hosted by some person who personified the 90s. If anyone had this tape, please let me know in the comments. Shin Akuma and Super Nintendo Alpha 2. The Super Nintendo port of Alpha 2 was rough, to say the least. A modder named Gizaha took it upon themselves to see if they could make the port run better, and in the code they found that Shin Akuma was playable in this version with a very long and complicated code. The code to unlock Shin Akuma was never officially released by Capcom. Abel and Rufus concepts. Like any piece of media, Street Fighter has had its fair share of concept art. Thankfully, many of it has been archived on various websites like the CRI website or Unseen64. Many characters went through several redesigns, two of the most notable being the fat American Rufus starting out as a break-dancing martial artist who would have been a rival to Ken. This outfit was repurposed to be an alternate for Ken in 4. Abel was originally a feminine judo fighter before turning into the beef kick we all know. One interesting concept that doesn't have any documentation is a karate clown character that Seth Killian mentioned in an interview. Finally, in a tweet from Capcom employee Taka Nakayama, it implied that Momotaro from pirate ship Higemaru was considered to be a character in 5. Now that would have been an oddball, to say the least. Oro's balls. In some frames of Oro's moves in Street Fighter 3, you can see Oro's testicles. Why someone took the time to draw them, I don't know. This video is being made before Oro's playable appearance in 5, so if we can't see his balls in that game, there was no point in bringing him back. Realistic Street Fighter V concept. Early concept art of Street Fighter V had the game look a bit more realistic, in the same style as Dead Rising or Resident Evil. Some art has been leaked online. I couldn't find a reason, but whatever the case, Capcom scrapped this style for a more artistic look. The Hot Ryu alternate is a remnant of the early Street Fighter V concept. Peter. Peter is an NPC fought in Street Fighter V's story mode. He acts as a tribute to former Fighting Game Pro and former Capcom employee, Peter Combo Fiend Rosas, and is even voiced by Rosas. Even though he's just a lowly old security guard, many fans do hope he gets promoted to playable in the future. Shin Ryu. Shin Ryu is a form of Ryu seen in the Udon comics where he battles Oni. This is a form of Ryu that overcomes the Satsui no Hadou and taps into the power of nothingness to balance the both and make a new, very powerful form of Ryu. It reminds me a lot of Ultra Instinct Goku. So far, the only appearance of Shin Ryu is in the Udon comics. Street Fighter V Pocky Edition. Pocky is a sponsor for Street Fighter V events in Japan, and during certain events, the snack can be seen advertised in some of the stages. Pocky had a challenge where you had to defeat your opponent when your health resembles a Pocky stick. Additionally, Pocky made a special package of Pocky adorned with several characters enjoying the snack. Street Fighter II The Interactive Movie. Street Fighter II The Interactive Movie is a Japan-only FMV game for the Saturn and PlayStation. In it, the players play as a Shadaloo android sent to get data on various fighters while watching clips from the animated movie. In the end, you fight Ryu in a Super Turbo-inspired fight. There isn't a lot of interactivity, and Capcom has shown little interest in bringing this back. Victor Sagat. Victor Sagat was how Sagat was referred to in the American Street Fighter cartoon and the live-action movie. It might be a reference to the Darkstalkers character Victor, but no one knows where Victor came from. Why they chose the very Russian name Victor for the very Thai Sagat is beyond me. No other medium does Sagat have the first name, and Capcom pretends it doesn't exist. Bison 2 and Shin Bison. Bison 2 and Shin Bison are extra forms of Bison fought in the Street Fighter EX series. Bison 2 is fought in EX2, and Shin Bison is a boss in Street Fighter EX3, and made a comeback in Street Fighter V's Extra Battles. Both are fought after meeting certain requirements, and are considered much more difficult than the standard Bison boss battles. Unblockable Take No Prisoners. Take No Prisoners is one of Rolento's signature super moves. In Street Fighter Alpha 3, Cody is unable to block this super. There is a theory that this might be corporal punishment from Rolento on the prisoner Cody. It more than likely is just a programming oversight or maybe an Easter egg. Kyle Travers. Kyle Travers is Cody's younger brother and protagonist in the game Final Fight Streetwise. Due to the poor reception of Streetwise, Kyle has not been seen in the Street Fighter universe since. The English version of the Shadaloo site implies that Streetwise isn't canon, but the Japanese version does acknowledge Kyle's existence. Whether he'll appear again in the future remains to be seen. Hadou Shoryuken. The Hadou Shoryuken is a reference to the anime Street Fighter II V, where Ken channels his ki into a Shoryuken that has a ki blast at the end of it. Ryu also performed the move in the anime. It would make an appearance again in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and is also an attack in Rainbow Edition, where doing a Shoryuken would cause Hadoukens on the ascent, and it is as broken and awesome as it sounds. Zombie Belger. The final boss in the Japan-only Final Fight Revenge was Zombie Belger, the bad guy from the Final Fight series. As a zombie, he can stretch his limbs like Dalsum, and can throw his limbs after losing them. Zombie Belger only appears in Revenge. Cycloids. The Cycloids are weapons developed by a very obscure character, Blaba, who is Pulam Purna's father from the EX series. They were invented to defeat the Shadaloo. Think of them like the wireframe fighters from the Super Smash Bros. Series, where they are faceless fighters that have moves from other characters. They only appeared as fighters in the EX series, but they do have articles on the Shadaloo website. Cannon Spike. Cannon Spike is a shooting game for the Dreamcast developed by Capcom. It features characters like Charlie, Cammy, BB Hood, and several other characters in a shooting title. It's a very obscure game and hasn't seen re-release. That said, Cammy got an outfit in Street Fighter V resembling her Cannon Spike look, and I really regret passing up on this title for $20 back in 2009. Final Fight Guy. The Super Nintendo port of Final Fight 1 was heavily cut down from the arcade or Sega CD ports. Besides no co-op play, the biggest thing was that Guy was missing from the Super Nintendo port. As a compromise, Capcom released a rental exclusive version of Final Fight called Final Fight Guy that replaced Cody with Guy for those who wanted to play as Guy. It's a collector's item these days and goes for really high prices in second-hand markets. Akuma anime cameos. Akuma has made a lot of cameos in various parts of Street Fighter cartoons, fitting as that he's watching fights waiting for strong opponents. This is most common in the anime Street Fighter II V, where he has many blink and you miss them cameos, same with the animated movie. Karin's origin. Karin is a character introduced in Street Fighter Alpha 3 as Sakura's rival. However, Alpha 3 was not her first appearance. Karin first appeared in the manga, Sakura Ganbaru. Prior to Alpha 3's launch, Karin had sprite data in Marvel Super Heroes vs. Street Fighter. She was a planned head swap of Sakura, but didn't make it into that title, and made her playable debut in Alpha 3. Related, Cammy's Killer Bee outfit, aka her Shadaloo outfit, made its first appearance in X-Men vs. Street Fighter. Chun-Li Zhang. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Similar to Victor Sagat, Chun-Li has been given the last name of Zhang in the live-action movie, and much like Victor Sagat or Ryu Hoshi, Capcom hasn't said anything about Chun-Li's last name. As far as we're concerned, Chun-Li is just Chun-Li. City Hunter. In 1993, Jackie Chan starred in the Hong Kong adaptation of the manga City Hunter. Probably the most known part of the movie is where Ryo is thrown into an arcade machine and dreams of Street Fighter II, complete with Chan dressing as Chun-Li. This was a weird movie, wasn't it? Street Fighter II was actually a lot more popular in Hong Kong than I had realized, and had several pieces of media produced for it in Hong Kong, but we'll get to those later. As for City Hunter, Jackie Chan did not enjoy working on this movie at all, and director Wong Jin would have his next movie, High Risk, take jabs at Chan's expense. Street Fighter Assassin's Fist. Released on Machinima and produced by Capcom, Street Fighter Assassin's Fist was a live-action web series. It focused on Ryu and Ken's training, as well as other parts of the Street Fighter lore, such as Akuma's conflict with the Satsui no Hadou, and eventual bout with Gotetsu. It was well received and led into another live-action tie-in, Street Fighter Resurrection. A follow-up titled Street Fighter World Warrior has been announced, but has been stuck in development hell. Dan's Shungokusatsu. Dan harbors a bit of resentment towards Saga due to Saga killing his father. As a result, Dan can tap into the Satsui no Hadou. Dan has his own Shungokusatsu called Otokomichi, Road of the Man. In true Dan fashion, it either hurts him or does no damage. That said, in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, it does do amazing damage, and in SVC Chaos, it does not damage Dan. Because Dan can tap into the Satsui no Hadou, and wanted to get into fighting to avenge his father, Gouken passed up on teaching Dan. Carlos Blanca. In the live-action movie, there was a bit of a mess-up with the continuity. It was implied that Charlie, called Carlos for whatever reason, was captured by the Shadaloo and turned into Blanca. Basically, they took Charlie's character and put him into Blanca's story, ignoring the fact that Blanca has a canon name, Jimmy. Seeing as Capcom barely acknowledges the movie or the Western show, it's likely Carlos Blanca will just be forgotten to time. Yun in Street Fighter Alpha 3. In the updated versions of Street Fighter Alpha 3 for the portable systems, Yun from Street Fighter 3 made a playable appearance. When quotes from Yun imply that he's in Alpha 3 due to time travel. Given that his first appearance was in Street Fighter 3, which, chronologically speaking, is the last game in the Street Fighter timeline. How he time traveled to the events of Alpha 3 are unknown. It might be Psycho Power, or maybe Ingrid brought him to Alpha 3. Whatever the case, Yun's appearance in Alpha 3 is considered non-canon. Street Fighter 2 Yomigaeru Fujiwara Kyo. Translated as Return to the Fujiwara Capital, Fujiwara Kyo is an educational movie starring Ryu, Chun-Li, Ken, and Honda as they travel back in time to the ancient capital of Japan, Fujiwara, with Ken explaining Japanese history to Ryu as they locate Chun-Li and Honda. This was a collaboration between Capcom and Nara City, where Fujiwara was once located. The movie was only distributed on VHS at an event in the 90s, and as a result, hardly anybody knew about its existence, but got redistributed on DVD for Street Fighter's 15th anniversary. Seth's Street Fighter V moves. In Street Fighter V, Seth got a total overhaul to make him more unique from his appearance in 4, as well as fit the 5 engine more. While Seth in 4 stole moves from the Street Fighter II roster, 5 Seth steals moves from other Capcom fighters. Cruel Disaster takes from Rufus's Galactic Tornado, and Jun's Comet Kick from Plasma Sword. Annihilate Sword has a lot in common with Makoto's Tsurugi Axe Kick. Mad Cradle is similar to Dimitri's Dragon Punch from Darkstalkers, and his Rapid Punch is very similar to Jotaro's Ora Ora or Dio's Muda Muda Rapid Punch attacks from Jojo's Bizarre Adventure, Heritage for the Future. In the English version of Street Fighter V, Seth even says useless, furthering the shoutout to Jojo's. Master Ryu. In Extra Battle, one of the opponents you can face is Master Ryu, a Ryu who has mastered martial arts and has access to unique combo routes that normal Ryu doesn't have. Being an extra boss battle, and not looking too much different from normal Ryu, it's more than likely just a fun boss to fight against. With that said, it probably sounds like the closest thing we'll get to Shin Ryu in the official games. Extra students. In the Japanese version of Project Justice, you could create your own student in a board game mode. Due to the amount of text needed to be translated, this was scrapped for the international release. As a compromise, Capcom included extra fighters in the international release, made from characters from the Character Creator mode. Phantom. Phantom is a side character shown in the Street Fighter V side story, Toxicity. Fong is blackmailed by a prostitute and her brother in Shanghai, and in response gives the two 3 choices: a stack full of poisoned money, a dagger that will cut off their hands, or neither and be set free. The prostitute instead asks Fong about the engravings on the dagger, as she never learned how to read. Impressed with her resolve, Fong dubs the prostitute Phantom and will teach her the ways of the assassin. A plot thread for Street Fighter VI, perhaps. Extra isms. In Alpha Anthology, Hyper Street Fighter Alpha added additional isms that reference other Capcom fighters, such as Third Strike and Dark Stalkers. Due to the console-specific nature of the extra isms, as well as the simple fact that these isms haven't existed in other re-releases of the Alpha games, not many people know extra isms exist, and they're only there if you want to mess around with them. Cammy leg censorship. I believe this is referring to Street Fighter V. Prior to V's release, Cammy's intro focused on her legs, and fellow Miss Fan Service Mika had her critical art slapping her own butt before the startup. However, Capcom wanted Street Fighter V to be broadcast on national television, and ESPN said that if those shots remained in the title, ESPN would not be able to broadcast V. Capcom acquiesced and altered the cameras for both Cammy and Armika. Additionally, Cammy's appearance in Wreck-It Ralph was altered to have her have pants. I guess the booty was too much for Disney. Street Fighter II Turbo Mega Drive prototype. In my original Iceberg, I said that Dash Turbo was the Japanese name for hyper fighting, but what the original Iceberg was referring to was the prototype version of Turbo for the Mega Drive. The prototype version of Dash Turbo was considerably different with gameplay changes and worse presentation. Sega wasn't happy with the original version and ordered Capcom to clean up the game to be comparable to the Super Nintendo version. Unused HD Remix intro. HD Remix was an updated version of Street Fighter II with new sprites and balance changes. What didn't make it into the final product was a recreation of Super Turbo's original intro with the HD Remix art style. SNK vs. Capcom error message. SNK vs. Capcom for the Neo Geo Pocket Color has several error messages. The game was meant to be played on the Neo Geo Pocket Color, not the original black and white model. One interesting message has K-Dash and Alex talk to each other, realizing that they probably aren't going to be playable in future SNK games. Street Fighter V at the 2020 Olympics. While the Olympics are known for displaying athletic skills, the International Olympic Committee was flirting with the idea of having video games at the Olympics. They teamed up with Intel for the Intel World Open Esports Tournament that was supposed to be held at the 2020 Olympics and would have featured Rocket League and Street Fighter V. I guess they picked those two titles as they aren't overly violent and are reasonably easy to understand from a non-gamer's perspective. However, the COVID-19 pandemic canceled the original version of the Olympic Games, and at time of making this video, Intel has no plans to host the Intel World Open Esports Tournament for the rescheduled 2021 games, assuming the 2021 games happen at all. Sheen. Sheen is the protagonist from the obscure Street Fighter spin-off, Street Fighter Online, The Mouse Generation. He's a Korean Taekwondo student and general nice guy, which is a very direct contrast from fellow Taekwondo practitioner Judy. His outfit also might be a shout out to Charlie's. Shin's only appearance is in The Mouse Generation, but he does have official art and a bio on the Shadowloo page. Street Fighter Online, The Mouse Generation. The Mouse Generation was a versus game made by Capcom for Japan. It had a unique control setup that was played entirely by a mouse, as well as a character customization feature. As a crossover, it featured characters from Street Fighter, Rival Schools, novelist Jin Yong, and the manga Cyborg 009. I used to love that show. It was announced and released prior to Street Fighter 4 and never exported outside Japan. Zeku is the original Strider. Zeku is a character added to Street Fighter V. He's Guy's mentor and a walking reference to the Strider franchise. It's hinted that Zeku created the Strider organization, coming up with a name, his ninja garb being very similar to Hado's, and him recruiting several Street Fighter characters into his organization in his arcade ending. One title you can unlock with Zeku is called Original Strider. It isn't stated, but the signs point towards Zeku creating the Strider organization. Sadler. Sadler is the main antagonist from the movie Street Fighter Alpha, the animation. He wants to be the strongest fighter in the world, and does that by stealing data from every fighter. He wants Ryu Satsui no Hadou, and eventually gets it. Thankfully, Ryu and Ken defeats him at the end of the movie. To date, Sadler's only appearance is in Alpha, the animation, though there is a possibility that the Resident Evil villain is named after him. Fuka and the Old Man from Alpha Generations. In the animated movie Street Fighter Alpha Generations, Ryu stays at a dojo with an unnamed old man and his adoptive granddaughter, Fuka. Who these characters are in the Street Fighter universe is a mystery. It's implied that Fuka might be Gouken or Akuma's daughter, but it isn't clear. The old man, on the other hand, is shown to be quite the capable fighter and trains Ryu before he goes to fight Akuma. He is said to be an acquaintance of Gouken and was the one who took in Ryu when he was a newborn, after he lost his parents. Given that he easily defeats Ryu in a fight in the movie and fights Ken to a standstill, it's safe to assume he is one of the more powerful characters in the Street Fighter lore. Sadly, he passes away at the end of the movie. Spoiler alert. Given that Alpha Generations takes a lot of liberties with the Street Fighter lore, it's safe to assume that it isn't canon and we'll probably never see Fuka or the old man again. Japan Sumo Cup. As a form of promotion in Japan, Capcom made a browser rhythm game to promote the Japan Cup, a horse racing event. In the game, you can pick your favorite Street Fighter character or sumo wrestler and ride a horse. It's a bizarre game, and due to the Japan-centric nature of it, it never got exposure outside of Japan. Curiously, despite being released in 2015 and having Street Fighter 4's aesthetic, Necalli was a playable character in Japan's Sumo Cup prior to his debut in Street Fighter V. The movie was the original Street Fighter III. According to Alan Noon, one of the people who worked on Street Fighter the movie the game was envisioned as a proper Street Fighter III. Some of the planned characters in this very early state included a female version of Geki, Retsu, Lee, Gunlock, and even Mega Man. Some of these ideas might have evolved into the actual Street Fighter III roster, like Ibuki taking a lot from Geki, Lee being the basis for Yun and Yang, and Gunlock being a blonde wrestler like Alex if we're really stretching things here. However, during the early planning of Noon's 3, Capcom informed his team that the game was to be based on the movie, and Noon's version of 3 never came to the surface. Kensei Mogura. Kensei Mogura is Street Fighter Whack-A-Mole. Instead of moles, you're whacking M bisons. Interestingly enough, there is a screen showing a fight. If you do well in the Whack-A-Mole title, you do better in the fight. It has a cool art style, and for a Whack-A-Mole title, it's impressive how involved this title is. If you've seen or played this in person, please let me know in the comments. And subscribe, why don't ya? Q theories. One of the most mysterious characters in Street Fighter lore is Q, introduced in Third Strike. Capcom has been very quiet about the character, and as a result, fan theories have run wild, ranging from Q being one of the CIA agents seen in his ending, to Q being Balrog, or Q not being human period. What little is known about the character is that when electrocuted, Q only shows his musculature, Q can appear in multiple places at once and disaster follows, and G has some connection to him, and I'm sure that will be explored in a future title. In 5, Gil has some interest in G, so maybe Gil has information on Q too. Related, the owner of the website Fighters Generation pointed out a Q-looking figure in the back of Ken's stage in Street Fighter II, who became curiously absent in subsequent releases. This was acknowledged in Q's ending in Third Strike, where he was seen at an American harbor. Brazilian comics. There's a lot of comics related to Street Fighter, the Udon series probably being the most known. Other Street Fighter comics were either one-shots that never left their region, or never authorized by Capcom in the first place. One that went on for a bit longer in production was the Brazilian comic, which was a continuation of the Malibu comic line, and more on that later. When Capcom canceled the Malibu Street Fighter comic series, the Brazilian publisher Escala made their own comic after failing to license the Masaomi Kanzaki Street Fighter II manga. The Brazilian comic only follows the Malibu series in number, as the story and art is totally different than what Malibu left off on, and is much better than the Malibu series. My guess is Street Fighter hype in Brazil was very much real, and Escala needed to keep the hype alive, with or without Capcom's permission. There's also another Brazilian comic called Street Fighter 03, published by Trauma Editorial, who also published the Brazilian version of the storytelling game and a 03 tabletop RPG. I'm not sure if the Trauma comic was authorized by Capcom. Regardless, the Street Fighter comic seems to be loved among older fans of Street Fighter in Brazil, and the art in both the Escala and Trauma comics is very pleasant. Ancient Necalli. Necalli is an ancient, vaguely human warrior introduced in Street Fighter V. His story alternate is this one, where he looks like moving clay. This is what Necalli originally looked like. In his story, Necalli consumed the warrior prophet in ancient times, and after taking the warrior prophet's soul, Necalli took on a more human appearance, inheriting the prophet's scars. Blanca concepts. Blanca, like any character, went through a lot of character designs. He wasn't always the green monster that Wi-Fi glue huffers play as. He went from a wrestler with an animal motif, to a ninja, to a beast man, to the green beast we all know and hate to play against. Capcom Fighting Evolution Retsu and Street Fighter I Sagat. Capcom Fighting Evolution, or Capcom Fighting Jam, had a rough development cycle. The team was dealing with the fallout of the cancellation of All-Stars and having a new director, Yoshinori Ono, joining halfway through production. One title that was conspicuously absent from Evolution was Street Fighter I. There were plans to have Street Fighter I represented, with Retsu and Eagle from Street Fighter I, and a special young version of Sagat playable, but due to time constraints and lack of pre-existing assets, other than Eagle's Capcom vs SNK 2 sprite, Street Fighter I characters were scrapped for Capcom Fighting Evolution. The movie DC comic. As a tie-in for promotion for the movie, DC Comics did a one-shot called Street Fighter, Battle for the Shadow Lu. Japan also got a different one-shot by artist Takayuki Sakai that was published in Koto Koto Comics. It's a bit ironic that someone went to DC for a Street Fighter comic, but I digress. Norimaro. Norimaro was a joke character added to the Japanese version of Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter. He's based on a real-life comedian, Noritaro Kinashi. He was supposed to be in the international release, and even had English text for some of his moves, but Capcom cuts him at the last minute. He only appears in Marvel vs. Street Fighter, but Phoenix Wright in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 seems to share a few moves with Norimaro. Sammy vs. Capcom. In 2003, Sammy and Capcom announced a crossover title, creatively titled Sammy vs. Capcom. It was announced, but that's it. No concept art or documentation has been found or even hinted at existing. I guess this was announced at a bad time for both companies, as Capcom was ending their arcade division and Sammy was buying Sega. My guess is we would have had characters from Street Fighter and Darkstalkers fight Guilty Gear and the Rumblefish characters. Remember the Rumblefish? Capcom did tap into Arxis a bit later to make the fighter Sengoku Basara X, a game so broken it died in its first day at the arcade. The storytelling game. In the early 90s, White Wolf, a publishing company, made a tabletop RPG using Street Fighter. There were 6 books released in the series, and due to how early this was released in the franchise's life, it took a lot of liberties and introduces a lot of characters that are stuck in the storytelling game. It's out of print and didn't sell all that well, but it does have a cult following. Flashback. A rejected spin-off for the Street Fighter franchise was Flashback, a proposed fighter with a single-player mode that focused on Ryu. It would have had different control layout as well as different special move inputs. In the fighting mode, there would have been an idea of rewinding time to undo a mistake or a combo, kind of like the rewind mechanic from Prince of Persia: Sands of Time. This, being a pitch, never got too far off the ground, only existing as documentation. Street Fighter II Ride. At amusement parks, you've probably been on a ride where you are on a seat that moves along with a movie. I like the Transformers ride from Universal Studios Singapore. Anyway, Street Fighter II had a ride and, well, the answers speak for itself. Human Killing Machine. Human Killing Machine is an unofficial sequel to Street Fighter I, pitched by Tiertex to Capcom. Capcom rejected their pitch as they were developing their own follow-up. Human Killing Machine eventually became its own game, where you play as Quan and fight many world warriors on one-on-one fighting. Final Fight 7 Sons. 7 Sons was a prototype for a 3D Final Fight title. It was in development for the PlayStation 2 and was supposed to be more in line with the classic titles. However, at the time, Grand Theft Auto was blowing up in popularity, and Capcom wanted something similar. 7 Sons was scrapped in favor of Streetwise, which everybody hated. Street Fighter World Warrior. World Warrior, not to be confused with the video game Street Fighter II The World Warrior or the planned follow-up to Assassin's Fist. This World Warrior was a small YouTube pitch for a live-action Street Fighter series. It centers around Ken trying to find Ryu, but runs into Chun-Li, who is Ryu's ex-girlfriend. Production was rough, as the original actor for Ken was involved in an accident, and Ken was recast at the very last moment before filming. Thanks to this, the low budget, and general obscurity of the pitch, it never went anywhere. The Ghost. The Ghost is a kickboxer from Final Fight Streetwise, who might be Joe from the original Street Fighter. Due to how ambiguous this character is, plus Capcom and the general public forgetting about Streetwise, it's likely Ghost will remain just that, a ghost. Street Fighter II V British dub. Street Fighter II V is an animated adaptation of Street Fighter II that takes a lot of liberties with the story. 2V had 2 English dubs, one made in America from Manga Entertainment and Animes, and a British dub by ADV Films, curiously recorded in Houston, Texas. While the manga dub was released on DVD and is easy to find, the ADV dub never got the same attention. A few episodes of the dub have been released online, but the remaining ADV dub is considered lost media. Akuma smiling. In official art and in-game, it's rare to see Akuma or Shin Akuma with anything other than a mean look, and when he does smile, it's usually not a good thing. However, in Elena's ending to Ultra Street Fighter 4, Akuma does crack a friendly smile, and to my knowledge, this is the first time Akuma has smiled in-game and it's not with murderous intent. Shun inspired Makoto, and Makoto is Ryu's sister. Shun was an original character for Street Fighter Alpha the animation. He claims to be Ryu's brother and can tap into the Satsui no Hadou. Without giving away any spoilers, things don't end up so well for Shun. Anyway, just looking at Shun, you can see a bit of similarity between him and Makoto, a character introduced in Street Fighter 3, The Third Strike. They have similar faces and similar hair, but totally different personalities and fighting styles. I don't think Shun was the inspiration for Mac, but I can totally see why people think this is. Related, there were a lot of rumors early in Third Strike's life that Ryu and Makoto were related. Easy to think, as they are both black-haired, muscular Japanese martial artists, but they, in fact, are not related. In fact, Makoto has a brother, seen here. Fire Kick. Fire Kick is an unused move in the original Street Fighter. It was planned and even has a voice clip. The Fire Kick was replaced with Ryu and Ken's signature Tatsumaki. Unused second impact clips. Street Fighter 3's second impact has a few voice clips that weren't used. One is Akuma saying Gozanku, his air fireball, the announcer saying New Generation, and most interesting of all is a female voice that is unused. Let's listen. It sounds like Chun-Li, but her lines are stuff that Chun-Li would not say. It could have been planned for Makoto, but she didn't get introduced to the series until Third Strike. Remy is related to Charlie or Guile. This is a fan theory. One of the original characters in Third Strike is Remy. He is supposed to play like Guile or Charlie, with a flash kick, high and low sonic booms, a double sweep, and a dive kick. Since Remy has a lot in common gameplay-wise with those two characters, it was speculated that Remy might have some relationship with either Charlie or Guile, either being trained by or being biologically related. Not helping is that fellow French fighter Abel mentioned to Guile that he saw the flash kick and sonic boom techniques before. There are endless theories about Remy's relationship to Guile or Charlie, but Capcom hasn't said anything about it, and to be perfectly frank with you guys, I don't think there's any relationship between the characters. Also, little fun fact, in Third Strike, there was a toss-up between Remy and a poison-wielding fighter to be in the game, but Remy won out for Third Strike, and the poison fighter would become Fong, who debuted in 5. Sakura's son. Sakura has a kid? Yeah, in her non-canon Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter ending. Don't worry, Sakura does not have a child in the Street Fighter canon. Hell, it's even a plot point that she wants to be a mother in Street Fighter 5, the Street Fighter 4 pregnancy mods notwithstanding. Also in Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter, Dan is shown to have a sister named Yuriko. Unlike Sakura's son, Yuriko appears in Street Fighter 5, so she is officially canon. Warrior King. In the Western show, USA did an indirect crossover with this character called the Warrior King, who appeared in the cartoons of Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Wing Commander, and Savage Dragon. The Warrior King episodes were filler at best, big-lipped alligator moments at worst. Chun-Li seemed to take a liking to the Warrior King at least. I have no idea if this was to promote something or if the Warrior King did anything else besides this weird indirect crossover. The Ferret. The Ferret is a reference to the short-lived Malibu comic adaptation of Street Fighter. While licensed by Capcom, the series was plagued by poor, inconsistent art and bad writing. Ryu is a notable jackass in the comic, and most notorious of all, the comic had Ken get scalped. Ken would have been brought back had the series continued, but Capcom wasn't having any of it, and yanked the license from Malibu after this event. Original DJ design. Of the original Street Fighter II cast, only DJ was designed by the American side. This was not the first design of the character. The original DJ design from Capcom Japan was considered way too offensive. A quote I found was, "too racist to be viewed by humans." The original design is locked in a Capcom vault, and likely due to the offensive nature of it, it will never be seen again. Given some of Capcom's questionable choices, I would love to see the original design. Hong Kong manhwa. Probably the most obscure comic in the Street Fighter series is the Hong Kong manhwas from the early 90s. Street Fighter was super big in Hong Kong, and they took it into their own hands to produce media for the franchise, including comics and a movie we'll talk about in a second. As far as I know, The Hong Kong manhwas were only released in Hong Kong and maybe other parts of Southeast Asia, with the exception of Japan where Capcom blocked them from being released. From what I could tell, they follow their own story. I actually couldn't find a lot of information about the manhwas, so if anyone knows anything about them, please let us know in the comments, and let me know if I'm saying manhwas wrong. Korean Street Fighter cartoon and movie. In the early 90s, Korea released their own Street Fighter cartoon and movie that is very different from the Street Fighter lore. In the cartoon, it is set after World War III. Two Korean youth find that the game has become real. There's no Ryu and Ken, instead we focus on two original characters who interact with the Street Fighter II characters, such as Blanka and Chun-Li. Even more obscure than that is the live-action Korean movie, which was released in either 91 or 92. This is reverse lost media, where we have the product but know nothing about how it came to be. If anyone knows anything about the live-action movie, I'm all ears. Both the cartoon and the live-action movie are unauthorized by Capcom, so that means a re-release of either will likely never happen. Typing Fighter 2. Are you like me and suck at typing but love Street Fighter? Then play Typing Fighter 2 Plus. It's a Japan-only PC game that teaches typing. You do better in the fight the better you type. So it's like Typing of the Dead, but Street Fighter. Cool! Hard Gaze Sprite. Masaki Sumitani is a Japanese comedian and wrestler who had a wrestling persona named Razor Ramon Hard Gay, or simply known as Hard Gay, which is exactly what it sounds like. Don't get Sumitani and Scott Hall confused. That's important. It might save your life. As an Easter egg, Hard Gay had sprite data in Capcom Fighting Evolution, being in Ingrid's sprite sheet of all characters. I have no idea why Capcom put Hard Gay in here, but to me it's hilarious that this even exists. Chun-Li ni Makase China. Like a lot of franchises, Street Fighter has graced pachinko with Chun-Li ni Makase China. There isn't much of note to say here other than, well, it's pachinko with Street Fighter. There is some nice artwork for the thing, and there are two original characters here called Reiko and Mary, both of whom have pages on the CRI website. Final Fight Amiga character deaths. In the Amiga version of Final Fight, there was a planned Where Are They Now ending for each of the characters that detailed what happened to them after the events of the title. These endings also included their deaths. Guy got a dignified death, Cody drank himself into a young grave, and Hager molested sheep and caught a disease from a dirty telephone. Yes, someone wrote that and it was about to put it in. In a related note, there is a lot of unused text in the Amiga version, and the developer even put in an Easter egg video of himself in this version that allowed for the cheat mode. American Dad vs. Family Guy Kung Fu 2. Sometime in the mid-2000s, the official Family Guy page made a fighter inspired by Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter called American Dad vs. Family Guy Kung Fu 2. You could play as various characters from both franchises in this title, and Ryu makes an appearance as the final boss, reusing his Street Fighter 2 sprite. I'm not sure how or why this happened, but it did. Given how many references to Street Fighter are in Family Guy, I guess this is a dream project for the team. Future Cops. Future Cops is an unofficial Street Fighter movie produced in Hong Kong. It would be the first time the franchise would grace the big screen. No words, just watch. Team-based Street Fighter 6. I was really hesitant to put this one on here as it isn't verified, but thought it was interesting. Thanks to leaks, it's been an open secret that Capcom has been working on a Street Fighter 6, despite it not being officially announced. A planned direction for Street Fighter 6 was a team-based gameplay system. If you've played Street Fighter V's Team Battle Mode, you might have played a Street Fighter 6 prototype. However, due to poor reception within Capcom, the COVID-19 pandemic, and Yoshinori Ono leaving the company, this version of Street Fighter 6 was scrapped, so who knows what Street Fighter 6 will look like. I do stress that the team aspect of 6 is a rumor and is not verified, but if anyone does have some meaty Street Fighter 6 info, spinning bird kick into my DMs, yo. Playable Obama. In the mouse generation, as a joke, Barack Obama was playable. Yes, you could do Barack Obama vs. Cyborg 009 if you wanted. Yes, this is real. I'm going to go out on a limb here and assume that Barry was never asked about the mouse generation. In a related bit, Obama was in Las Vegas at the same time as EVO 2010, which caused a lot of headaches for those in charge of EVO. I don't think Obama was in Vegas for EVO, but I choose to believe so. Street Fighter Alf. Street Fighter Alf is this awesome shirt I got from Albuquerque, New Mexico. If you want this shirt, hit up Gamers Anonymous in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and hopefully they'll do another print run. Or you get this awesome Street Fighter 2 t-shirt my sister got me from Hot Topic. So that is the Street Fighter Iceberg finished. It's so nice to have all the information in one video, and hopefully you enjoyed it. Whether it's your first time watching, or maybe it's your second or third, I'm glad you made it to the end of the video. You are a true blue world warrior. One thing I'll say about Street Fighter is that it really did manage to bring so many people together, whether you're playing on the big stage at Capcom Cup, or just some kids saving the pocket change to play a single game at the nearby laundromats. People really love the series, and it's had such a huge impact on culture as a whole. I love Street Fighter, if you couldn't tell. I am very excited to see what Capcom does with the franchise going forward. Hopefully only good things. If you enjoyed this video, why don't you hit the subscribe button and the bell as well for notifications on future videos, and leave some comments. Who's your favorite Street Fighter character, or who do you want to see in Street Fighter 5 and Street Fighter 6? Let me know down there in the comments. And of course, hit me up on the social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, @ZMangs, you know what it is. I'll see you in the next video, everybody, and take it easy, and have a good one. Later.